I hope it doesn't sound like I got this big ego, but when I open my mouth up, people cry. When I play people, they just go, oh my God. And it's just that I'm just used to it. I don't take it for granted. But I mean, I'm on stage playing with Joe Satriani, and he comes up to me after the show and says, man, I looked at you over there and I thought, that is a rock god, man. You are so cool. And I'm thinking, I'm standing next to Joe Satriani, you know? Or I did Purple Haze with Slash at a Hendrix tribute show one time, and this was like 10 years ago. And when he got done with the song, he goes, dude, you are badass. He gave me a big hug while the crowd is clapping, you know? And so for me, I ain't intimidated by anybody. And it ain't that I think I'm better than anybody. It's just, I just go do what I do.
Welcome to another episode of 2020. My name's Cory Peza, here as always with Siobhán Cronin and Benny Goodman. How you guys doing?
Well, Ben is busy eating his Haribo gummy bears that he likes to refer to these days, but super excited to dive into part 2 with the amazing dUg Pinnick. We had a great conversation in part 1, so don't forget to check that one out too, and subscribe at 2020-d.com to stay tuned for all of the wonderful guests we have on the show.
Yeah, and if you're looking for inspiration, you look no further. This episode, it just makes me want to go write an album right now.
Yeah, he just makes me want to be calm. He's just such a calm spirit. He helps tame all of our collective anxieties.
How can they make these gummy bears so delicious without actual flavoring? It says all artificial flavoring, but it tastes so flavorful.
It's all artificial. I mean, you're just eating ground up animal bones, aren't you? Isn't that what those are?
Well, Ben's the artificial flavoring in this intro, so forget it. Here it is, part 2 with the amazing dUg Pinnick.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with a truly legendary human being who is in the club of like Sammy Hagar. All the mummies have been perfectly preserved in Egypt for 5,000 years. And a few other people in rock history, like Quincy Jones doesn't seem to age. He looked that same way for like 79 years. But this guy is an amazing vocalist, a prolific songwriter, incredible bass player, and he literally is on songs with everybody, even fucking Ice-T. Can we give it up for dUg Pinnick, spelled D-U-G?
I love that. Can I ask you about the genesis of the dUg, just for anyone that doesn't know the story? How did that come about?
Okay, let me make this one quick too. You know, I won't go down another rabbit hole, but I like calligraphy. My mother can write like a Hallmark card. She's that good. And I've always admired that, and I've always liked writing. And so I have a really good handwriting, but it's not as good as hers. But I used to, when I'd write letters to people, I'd write like, hey, how you doing? Then I'd draw a sun. Mm-hmm. And then Nide. And I used to do that a long time and all these things. And I used to draw a lot of stuff in school, in grade school. And so, you know, writing curvature stuff, it was just so much fun that all of a sudden we got computers and we started typing, and all of a sudden nobody's using cursive anymore, and there's no art. The art is gone. And one day I just got bored and I put a little D and a big U and a small G, and I looked at it and I thought, that's artistic, because I got to do everything in my life. I got to
well, syntax is next to godliness. So,
yes.
like, I mean, if there's
so I did that, and I started putting it on emails, and after a while, it just kind of stuck. And then I went online one time, and it said dUg alias dUg. And now it's dUg. I had nothing to do with it. So that's how that all happened. It was just like I did it as a fluke, and I didn't pay attention, and this is what it is now.
And then the internet chose your identity.
Yeah, and at that point, I go, okay, I might as well just keep it now, dude. And the other thing also is, black folks in the South call me dUg. White folks in the South too, dUg. So I think dUg, you know.
Well, can I ask you? Okay, On behalf of black folk, can I ask you? Because I'm so confused, and I don't normally like to get into religion or politics or any of that.
Oh, I do.
I watched Dave Chapelle, and I know that you're a gay man, you're a black man, you're in your 70s. Am I offended by this? I don't know if I'm supposed to be offended. Like, what's going on? Because people are walking off Netflix, and like I saw this thing, and I always feel like he's a great orator. He knows history, but like I don't know if I should be offended.
I'll address the Dave Chapelle thing. People ain't listening to what he's saying, and that's it. People are not listening to what he's saying, and fuck them. Remember what he said? He said all those movie stars went out with their black dresses on, going the Me Too movement, showing everybody. Now, what the fuck is that? Every straight guy wants to fuck a woman in a black dress. So they wear black dresses. Like, so what was that supposed to mean? And then they wouldn't let the black chick be on a part of it. They didn't want no trouble. And then she gets up there and says, I'm a woman, ain't I? And Dave Chapelle, his whole point was, my problem ain't with the LGBTQ, whatever the fucking name it is today is. My problem is with white people. And I'm going, there you go. It's like those people went on to do their thing. And what he said, what else did they do? Did they go down into the trenches? And he said, did they fire all their lawyers and get an LGBTQ manager to help them? Did they do any of that? Those are hypocrites. He don't like hypocrites. And hypocrites don't like to be told they're hypocrites.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely.
Because I got to tell you, from my perspective, I watched it going, okay, I should be offended now, right?
Why?
I should be offended. No, well, exactly. Because
shit.
every time I watch Dave Chapelle, well, but not just that, Dave Chapelle makes me think, because he's become above a level of a comedian, because he's got like a guy like Henry Rollins is a little bit less of a comedian, more of an orator, but same kind of concept in that he tells these very introspective stories that you don't know where he's going, but he's very intelligent, he's very well spoken, and he's educating people through his words. And Dave Chapelle, it's like a Penn and Teller thing.
Jesus said, "Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. The rest of y'all that won't hear, fuck y'all."
That's the title of our episode now.
Yes. Cory's like, I'm not sure I can fit that in.
You can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink the water.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
At some point, you just got to say, y'all ain't listening, but I'm going to keep talking because there's somebody else out there that does hear it. And just take the shit like Dave Chapelle did. The last joke he told about that girl was hilarious. And I remember he said, and she would have laughed at that one too. And I went, yes. And when the last thing he said was, he said to that community, stop beating my people down. Because they beat that woman down because she stood up for Dave Chapelle because he was a great comedian and she loved what he did. Because they don't want to hear the truth. They just want a cause.
Yeah.
I love hearing it from you, because I feel the same way, but I'm a white Jewish guy.
Well, yeah,
so,
you can't say nothing right now.
I can't say shit. Although my people were technically, even though I don't give a shit about that, everyone could say my people from then and this. I don't give a fuck. It's who you are now.
Here's the sad thing. White people have been held hostage for a long time with racism. Here's the deal. Most people are not racist. Racism is not what the media says racism is. Get what I'm saying? If a white person comes into my house and says, "What's it like being black in the ghetto?" I want to tell them, well, this is what it's like, rather than going, well, I'm so offended that you even thought I lived in the ghetto. Get over your goddamn self. I'm so fucking sick of these pussy people who can't take anything. It's like, I grew up where I couldn't drink out of a faucet that said white only. I remember playing a place where I was with white people, but I had to stay in a hotel while the white kids stayed in white people's homes. I grew up in that life. Those people that are crying about this shit, they don't understand. They don't get it. they do not get it. You can say nigger or you can say nigger. There's two different ways to say it. My nigga is this and my nigga is that. Everybody goddamn say it. If black people can say it and rap it and make hits out of it and expect the little white kids in the suburbs not to say it, they're fucking idiots. Okay? There's a difference. I remember a person said to me one time, there goes a nigger. I knew what he meant.
Yeah.
But when a country and western singer, his friend is drunk and says, oh man, get that nigga upstairs so he can get to sleep. And he loses his whole in the music industry because of that. And he's blackballed. I'm going, everybody says that. People say it all the time. It's like, what are you talking about? We're just talking about our friends. There's nothing, it's not racist. And this is my problem. It's like the word racist has become all encompassing, you know. It's like a friend of mine, well, actually, a relative, you know, was said, if those thug Mexicans come across the border, you know, with their drug addict, I go, wait a minute. I said, what about the ones that are seeking asylum because they need to, you know, a woman who would send her child alone to get away from the violence. And she says, well, you're just calling me racist now. And I'm thinking, I never said anything about racism. It's like, this is what I'm saying. It's like, people, take a deep breath.
Yeah, that's a powerful.
Stop.
Do you think it's people just not wanting to dive into the details and it's people wanting to be broader?
No. Here's the deal. We have algorithms. Everybody, including me, you, all of us here, we have a different algorithm coming to our iPhone. What we have been scrolling, what we have been wanting, what we have been looking for, we get more of it than anything else. Everyone has their own reality, and the realities has caused people to create tribes, and the tribes will not listen to each other.
Explain this to me, because I got these, I ordered these weeks before from the internet, and this came up on my feed. And I was like, I'll buy the signed Doug Pinnick record, which, by the way, for $100, you'll write someone's lyrics. Like, is that not something you can do on your site?
And I have never posted that.
Because I saw something like that on the side of my feed, and like, how's he know I love that shit?
That's what I'm saying. You can sit there and talk about buying a new pair of shoes, and I swear to God, your phone will show you some shoes from Amazon.
Oh, it knows before. It knows about the shoes, and it shows you that you want shoes.
And so now we have Facebook and a lot of other
Meta.
Right. All this stuff, which is adding to the confusion, the separation, and the hate, but also bringing people together, bringing loved ones together, the good. You know, it's like we're at a crossroads here because the only thing we can do now is censor what we do, which is a crossroads, because there's a civil war right there. But here's what I think about it too, is like,
second time,
they're still only telling us what we want to hear. They're still separating us. They're still using it to make money, because if you follow the money, they are in control. The people with the 1%, they're controlling us because they're making money on us. And until we wake up and stand up against it, we're just going to fight each other, and we're going to get nothing, and they're going to get everything. Just think about the billions of dollars that Amazon got and didn't give anybody a fucking raise. You know, I said, come on.
Yeah.
And nobody's,
to be fair, he built a really big rocket ship.
And nobody's really, nobody's protesting that. You know, they're protesting against Black Lives Matters or KKK. I'm going, what the fuck is that? It's like, are we that, like, it's so frustrating.
Well, the worst thing is when people are so stupid, they don't realize they're sharing memes or things that actually mean something completely different. And you'll go and try to tell them, they're like, what do you mean? It's about a child. Like, no, you're being racist.
Yeah.
And they get mad at you and they get triggered because they don't understand that, like, they're literally just sharing a propagandist thing that somebody 25 minutes ago decided that they were going to create to make a bunch of dumb white people share their idea.
Well, you said it, not me.
Well, here's the thing. The one thing that you brought up that I think is so important, and it comes back to perspective, is we all need to find ways to connect with people that have experienced things outside of the internet, outside of memology, and something that you brought up is you've lived through a lot of these things, a lot of these historical moments. You've experienced segregation, racism in a way that was way, way extreme, I'm sure, compared to anything that we've ever come up against. And, you know, moments like this is where we can learn from people like you and others. And I think just you telling your story is incredible. And that's, it's hard to see things that are going on that a lot of us probably can't even relate to, because how do you empathize with something, you know, that you haven't gone through? And it's the only way you can learn is by talking, like, whether it's like this, you know, talking to people, facing people, you know, not just going through what's being fed to you on the internet, for sure. So, I don't know. It's a complicated topic for sure.
It really is. I just have no answers, but just education one by one.
I'll ask you this, and to tie it into your, you know, your music and stuff, like how do you process, you know, stuff like this in your music, or is your music more? Absolutely. So is that part of like your most recent solo record, Joy Bomb?
Yeah, there's some stuff in there. Same thing. Love and fear is everywhere. It's a way of life. It's a way we live. Take a walk on the wild side if you dare. You might change your mind. Close your eyes, empathize, see through someone else's eyes. For your mind and your ass will follow. These are changing times. You know, it's like I wrote that 20 years ago, but it's still relevant, seems like.
Yeah, amazing.
I actually was listening to the song. I wrote it down because, again,
awesome.
I don't know the names of anything. Like, have yourself a Merry Little Christmas. I'm not gonna freak out. And you say something that I say this to people all the time, is that people think that you're rich just because you play rock and roll, but really all you get to do is everything that you want to.
Right.
And that's paraphrasing you, because you say it more eloquently.
You sing
it
beautiful.
I
could have said that.
But I'm listening to this.
Put
I'm
a
like,
cap on. That's beautiful.
This Doug guy, this Doug dude is talking to me, bro. And I'm listening to this, and this is all while you're playing bass that's way above my pay grade and singing like a fucking angel simultaneously. It's kind of bananas, dude.
Thank you.
There was no question there, but okay.
I have to say that, like, I saw him from behind, you know, Kenny Aronoff going nuts, and I'm like, who the fuck? They're like, Doug Pinnick. I'm like, that's all my life.
I'll try to pull a question out of that. Like, when you're writing, like, what does your process look like? You know, obviously, you know, the lyrics are deep and important. So when you're putting music together, what's the order of operations in terms of the idea?
Lyrics are last. Lyrics are not even a thought. Not even a thought. I'll make up a song. I'll pull up my Pro Tools Luna now, because Luna's blows away Pro Tools. I love my Luna.
Wow.
Yeah, it's UA. It's like the difference is like
really.
I've never heard of it, actually.
Luna is UA.
Okay. Universal Audio. Yeah.
Universal. Yeah.
Well, I feel like Pro Tools is like bondage. Like I feel enslaved every time I sign on to it.
Listen to me. I felt the same way with Pro Tools, but I tried out Luna, and what I learned with Luna is that all the tape emulators really sound like real tape. And so everything I lay down is basically on a Studer 24-track tape. The emulator, plus it has a Neve summing, and it has every track has its own tape emulator where you can adjust it to the way a tape player is. And nowadays, you know, I don't care what any sound man say when they say they can tell the difference. Not this one.
So I love that you're saying that. Well, pause for 1 second, because your new record sounds sonically bananas. And there's so many people who wax philosophic about analog and all that. And I was at a time where I remember people using Neve boards, but also Pro Tools came in, and, you know, the talkies killed vaudeville. And I personally think, like, after I heard Metallica and 5.1 surround sound on a disc, I was like, dude, you're lying to me. There's no way the analog is better than this. And it's so great that you say that, because you decided during COVID to become a better producer. And as a producer, and as somebody who's always been tweaking it to how I think it should sound, paraphrasing you, fucking hats off, dude.
Thank you.
It sounds ridiculous. I want to sit in Shannon's crazy room down in Florida and just listen to it on vinyl. You know what I mean? Awesome.
I was really happy with the vinyl, because when we mastered it, I told them, I said, make sure it can be as analog as it can sound. And when I got the record, I put it on, and I was going, whoa! I was kind of surprised. because I wasn't expecting it to on a record to sound that analog compared to the other records. So I'm real happy with Miles, who did it.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, so going maybe
mastered it. I meant mastered.
And hey, does it help with those Focal speakers behind you, Siobhán? Jesus, anyone trying to compensate at your phone? Those things are huge, man. Like they just look like they're looking at me like a Pink Floyd video.
I admire you even more for being involved in the mixing and all of that stuff. My husband's the one that's the audio nerd. I am like, and I joke with these guys all the time. I'll record myself. He's like, "Did you think that sounded good?" And I'm like, "Well, it sounded good to me."
I was so impressed with what I saw behind you. I just go, "Whoa!"
No, that's all him. He's totally
yeah. Well, hold on, no, but he's compensating because you're a classical violinist that completely just makes all of us feel unworthy with your playing. So like we have to buy speakers, and like I have 200 guitars since I've met you. So like it's just me trying to prove that maybe I'll be a third as good as your violin playing.
Oh my gosh, no! But you just reminded me of something that I loved that you actually said in the last episode. Speaking of like being a violin player and compensating, but when we were talking about how you have to spend the early part of your your 20s or whatever, like working on your craft and focusing on music. When I was going to school, I was totally discouraged by all of my teachers who knew that I was a good violin player. They thought it was a shame that I was going to study music. Like, oh, that's too bad. Like, why aren't you going to, you got good grades. Why don't you go to law school or medical school? And it was like, I was so excited to tell my teachers that I was going to go to music school. Like, this is going to be great. And everyone was like, oh, that's too bad. Like, they looked at it as just kind of a way to get into college, but like, you actually ditch it after that, And I remember feeling heartbroken over that because I'm like, wow. And that stuck with me for a really long time, not to make it about me. But, I spent the good part, I think, of my 20s feeling guilty for pursuing music because I felt like I was supposed to be doing something else.
Yeah, they do
and
that.
That's
That's a terrible thing to do to people. I wish people wouldn't do it. And it's true. I learned the hard way when a friend of mine took me to see a band play one time. It's about 80, well, maybe 90. And we went to the club and I kind of said to him, "I'll get you for this." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "They suck." And so we left. And in my arrogance, all right. So about a month later, I'm at a record store looking through records, and a guy comes up to me and says, "Hey man, I heard you came to see my band play." And I says, "Oh yeah, how's the band doing?" He says, "Well, I quit him." I go, "Why?" He said, "Well, if Doug Pinnick says that my band sucks, I'm not going to stay in them." And that was the day I realized that be careful what you say. Be careful what you say. And I've been aware of that ever since.
Did you mean it though? Did you actually mean that they sucked?
They weren't bad. It was just they weren't. They really weren't bad. I was making a joke because sometimes, oh man, they suck. Let's go. They were a good band. They weren't something that I wanted to go. I mean, I remember watching them and I'm going, okay, it's like I'm not getting anything out of this. They're not bad. They're just another metal band. To me.
If someone asks you an honest opinion, because I think that's a tough one. If there's like the two levels of musicians, right? There's the people that are doing it for fun. And you don't want to tell them that their band sucks. Like, no, they're having a good time. It is whatever.
Right.
If it's them and their buddies getting together, having drinks, playing out, it's good. But if someone, and especially this happens if you work in a studio environment where someone comes in like, I'm going to record an album and I want to pursue music. And you sometimes have to be like, dude, your drummer can't hold a beat. Like, you guys are terrible. Like, and like to do that and be, it's almost your duty to be like, I always ask, like,
you have to be 100%
empathetic,
and you have to really know how to negotiate.
Exactly. Yeah. And you have to say, what are your goals? Are you trying to do this for a living? Are you trying to make money with this? Like, are you trying to pursue this as a career? You have some more work to do.
It's been so long since I've been around somebody that I didn't feel had it, and if I just let them go, they'd figure it out.
Yeah.
There's I've never, it's like everybody that I've ever been around were always incredible musicians. It's like all the people I would hang with, they all could do something, whether they did anything with it or not. I mean.
Well, let me ask you, Can I ask you about one guy? Because you played with this
Yeah.
dude, Eric Gales.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the drummer in that band who played with a little band called Mars Volta, but like no big deal. But like, what's it like to play? Because when I first saw Eric Gales, okay, like he was part of like some like store, like 1 minute meme, TikTok, something. What I'm like, it was like the new Hendrix or whatever. I'm like, that's a bold statement. And then I started watching him. I YouTubed him. I'm like, fuck. And then 2 hours later, I was like, fuck. And now you play with him. And then I watched all the music with you guys. And then it's just like, fuck. Do you ever sit there as a guy who's played with everybody and still get the butterflies?
No.
No, that's great. You're this disillusioned. You're like, fuck it. I don't even give a shit.
No,
Tap it out.
I literally have been lucky enough to play with some amazing guitar players as long as I've played in bands. Even in my 20s when I was 18,
Who are you the most
19
intimidated
years old.
by? How about that? Who are you most intimidated by as a guitarist?
As a guitarist?
Yeah, like who intimidated you as a guitarist? Like you didn't want to step on his toes, or maybe they were just personally.
Well, I'm not a guitar player, so I don't even call myself a guitar player. I write everything on guitar, and I play all guitars on my solo records. But the only reason you hear what you hear is because I sit there and play it till I get it. You know, I'm not a guy that goes out and Ty told me one time, he said, Doug, you're good enough to be a guitar player in a band. He told me that about 20 years ago. So
no, I mean, you played with all these.
Okay, but I played bass with all these bands.
No, that's what I'm saying. What guitarist, as far as like a personality, like a Joe Satriani, like have you been like around? Because you play bass, but maybe they're yelling at you like, bro, you got to do this. What?
No.
Sash is a mean guy or something.
No, here's the crazy thing. And I hope it doesn't sound like I got this big ego, but when I open my mouth up, people cry. When I play people, they just go, oh my God. And it's just that I'm just used to it. I don't take it for granted. But I mean, I'm on stage playing with Joe Satriani, and he comes up to me after the show and says, man, I looked at you over there and I thought, that is a rock god, man. You are so cool. And I'm thinking, I'm standing next to Joe Satriani, you know? Or I did Purple Haze with Slash at a Hendrix tribute show one time. And this was like 10 years ago. And when we got done with the song, he goes, dude, you are badass. He gave me a big hug while the crowd is clapping, you know? And so for me, I ain't intimidated by anybody. And it ain't that I think I'm better than anybody. It's just, I just go do what I do and we just do what we do, you know? I remember I played with Steve Vai one night. We had a jam and my rig was right behind him. And his rig was next to mine, but we had to set up kitty-cornered. So he was right in front of my rig. And I'm thinking, oh my God, here's fucking Steve Vai standing here. And my lazy ass who plays bass behind the beat and all over the place because I'm singing, and he's gonna freak out. And I said, Steve, is my bass too loud? He goes, no, man, turn it up. I love bass players that pick. You're badass. And I'm thinking, oh, okay. Then I go up to the mic and we do Sunshine of Your Love. You know, so for me, I have never, ever been intimidated by anybody ever in my life. And it's not that I think that I'm any good. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that I just always got up and opened my mouth up, and what happened happens. You know, and here's the thing, though. When I do that, I hate every second of it. I second guess every second of it. I beat myself up when it's over. I destroy any joy that I had when I did it, because that's how hard I am on myself. But I did learn something on the Hendrix tour, because one night I almost had a panic attack before I went on, because I thought I sucked every night. And I was walking around in the dressing room by myself, singing the whole set and banging on my bass. I was in the bathroom just singing the songs over and over again. Just like, God, I was freaking out. And all of a sudden, and then I stopped and I started to pray like I always do to the universe. Universe, help me do a good job tonight. Help me, blah, blah, blah. But every time I ask the universe to help me, the opposite happens. And so I started going, well, help me sing good. Well, no, don't let me sing good. Just help me enjoy it. Oh, no, because I don't want to enjoy it because then I won't be able to sing. And I would go down this whole rabbit hole of talking to the universe, praying. And all of a sudden, about 4 shows in, something stopped me all alone and hit my head and said, stop. You don't need to pray to me anymore. And I'm going, what the fuck? And this voice said to me, when you go on stage, no matter how bad you feel, no matter how horrible you think you are, no matter how horrible you think you look, when you get done singing, what happens? I go, people go nuts and they cry. It says, so you go out and do what you do and do what you're supposed to do and let it happen and shut the fuck up. And I walked on stage that night, and it was the first time I felt like I connected as a person. I sang, I was happy, I hit notes, I saw them react. I felt good. Not like it was an ego. It was like, it was just to enjoy something. To enjoy a crowd react to you, because even when a crowd reacts to me, I would go back and go, no, I don't know why they're clapping, man. I sucked, because you hear all these things in your head that you were told as a little kid, nobody likes you, nobody wants you. My mother never told me I was a good singer. She never told me I was a good bass player. She never once said that to me, in my whole fucking life. She never told me I was a good poet when she wrote poetry. So in my life, I've always felt I wasn't good enough, and I've always been trying to perfect it, So I'm kind of obsessed with pushing the envelope, keep going and going. That was pretty heavy. I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, I'm so glad you told that story, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. And when you were talking, I was like, wow, this sounds exactly like me, because for a really, really long time, it was the same. I would hate every performance I did. I would usually cry after I played because I was like, oh no, this was awful. And like, it was all completely... Yeah, it's so hard. I don't even know. I mean, I think it's great advice what you gave, that you have to kind of look objectively sometimes at what is happening around you.
Yeah, if you finish a show and there's thousands of people cheering, you probably did an okay job.
No, but that inner psychology is very hard to get beyond, though, because that's just like what I was saying about, teachers saying, oh, it's a shame to go to music school, or if your parent doesn't tell you that you are doing well at what you love, that's something that really sticks in your head.
I feel like the thing with the Instagram crowd and all these social media people that put out stuff thinking it's perfect, you haven't really earned that emotional memory until you've apologized for your performance. As you run off stage, the first thing you're saying is what you anticipate your parents are going to say, your friends, oh, I couldn't hear my vocals, or my piano wasn't even fucking plugged in, or it takes such a long time to actually just be like, yeah, I fucking rocked that shit. But usually it's excuses forever as to why you just hate everything about everything that you do. And that's something that, you learn in the recording studio, is that you have to get good at what you actually sound like versus what you think you sound like. And that's the real, that's the Matrix. That's like you hear yourself naked. You don't know what naked is until you're in a studio with Cory sitting there going all right, dude, now singing in pitch. Now with time. now both pitch and time at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but and then he just stops and starts and stops and starts and stops and starts, and that's the reality. That's literally what sometimes you need to know, that you need to be humble too.
Yeah.
There was one thing that you brought up. It seemed like a little insecurity, or at least a feeling of judgment over playing bass with a pick. What the fuck is that? What is wrong with playing bass with a pick?
I have been told all my life I should be playing with my fingers. And truly, bass players, the real bass players mainly play with their fingers. In King's X, when Sam Taylor, our manager, came to visit us, or came to start working with us, he called me a frustrated bass player, which was an insult, because, basically saying all bass players with picks want to play guitar. And I never wanted to play guitar. I like to play guitar to write songs, and that's about it. I love playing bass. Bass is what I love to do. But I love that pick because I love the way it sounds. Exactly. And I play bass like if you played with your finger. I play bass like I play with my fingers, and that's I've never changed it. I played with my fingers for a while, for the first like 6 months or maybe a year. And then when I found that tone, that Chris Squire tone, and I found out you had to use a pick, I just switched over and went for it. I didn't care.
It's what it always blows my mind, you know. And I'm in a weird situation because I started on guitar, and I started playing bass 15 years ago, and I made a distinct effort to play bass like a bassist, I should say. So I can play fingerstyle bass all day, and there are times when a pick a guitarist doesn't just play with a pick. They play with their fingers. They play it's an instrument that has so many different sounds, and it's always blown my mind when someone says, "Oh, well, you're playing with a pick, so you're just half-assing this instrument." It's like, no, that is a stylistic choice, and it's a great choice.
I mean, just think about metal, for instance. If you want to go, you don't do that with your fingers. You got to palm it like a fucking guitar, and you take that pick and go. I mean, you know, and I watch these pick players going, and I'm going, but then when the guitar players goes, you're going, gang. I'm going, you lost me. What's going on here?
It's. Ben, go ahead.
There's all these. If I'm going to take it on like a total guitar nerd, it's like, you're playing it really low, and your pick has a really cool angle. So maybe it's the angle of your pick because your arm is fucking longer than any arm I've seen on any human, and you're playing your bass so low. I mean, do you think it's partly the way that you play because you have such a distinct? I mean, like nobody plays bass like you, dude. Like it's the most ridiculous stance. It's like a power stance. It's the Doug Pinnick fucking power stance, and it's awesome, dude, because you look like you're having the greatest time in the fucking world, and like you could give me $1 million and hold a gun against my head and I could never even emulate it, not for a bar.
I love playing bass. Bass is a voice, and bass for me, my take on bass is to play it like it's a voice. Shake your strings, slide into things. Make it a voice, give it nuance like every other instrument that you're playing with has. And being a singer, I'm told that singers have a knack for, they play bass differently. Sting, Paul McCartney, we can go down the list, Geddy Lee. I'm told that singer bass players, they have a different sensibility on bass. And so
Slayer.
Slayer too, man. It's literally, watching him play and sing, I go, whoa, same thing. Yeah. So what is my point? Oh, well, and because I play low now, that ain't got nothing to do with the style, I don't think. Playing low, I thought was cool, but what happened was playing that low gives me no back problems because you're free to do whatever you want to, and you can sling that guitar anywhere you want to put your leg anywhere because it's just hanging down low. And if you know what you're doing on the bass, you can put that bass anywhere and relax. I don't have a Les Paul strapped to me with a big thick strap and my back is hurting. I'm held up like this because those guys are wearing back braces, and I'm slumped over like this, rocking out, bopping up and down. And, I went to a chiropractor once and I said, man, you think you need to straighten my back out? And I said, I play bass. And he goes, well, let me check you out. And he went, says, well, seems like you're okay. and I'm a firm believer that it's because I play my bass so low in the strap so low. The strap also, a big thick strap to me just cuts my neck, and I can't do anything but just kind of my hands kind of my muscles, everything gets tense up when my arms are dropped. If my hand gets tired, I can go this way or that way. If my fingers get tired, I can just lift and just swing it around. Oops, what did I? I can always keep hitting the song. I'm not
getting passionate.
Hang on.
Well, you know what? That made me realize I have even more respect for. I have even more respect for Randy Rhoads because he used to play with a full Python.
He's got to get his
You can here we are. Okay, sorry about that. Basically what I'm saying is you can be very I am pretty passionate, but you can be very acrobatic with when you play that low.
Yeah.
And I'm making a point, you know, because I watched Fanny back in 1971. Remember that all-girl band? They, even before Joan Jett. Anyway, the girl played bass and she sang, and she stood there and played these songs and sang with complete independency. And I was so impressed with her. And I've never forgot it, you know, and I think that was very encouraging to just that it could be done, you know, and it's fun. And for me, watching Yes and all the complicated riffs that they do and how they could sing over top of them and watching them live do it, that was another encouragement. I was going, yeah, let's make up the most fucked up riffs I can and see if I can put a melody over top of it and do it together. And it was a challenge, and it became it's become easy now, you know, after all these years. But it was.
Hold on, can I tell you something? The last three guests in a row have had blown away Yes stories. Nuno was in a Yes progressive band that he described it as Yes. Gene Jolly, who we just talked to, who was the president of Guitar Center, was also in a band and said that Yes was the reason that he played. That literally all the odd meters and all of that, you know, the Wakeman era, and now you're saying Chris Squire. And it's really interesting. Like no, but I'm saying it's just really interesting because it's, you know, like I love Yes, but they're a band that a lot of people like, you know, they don't understand. It's 32-minute songs. Yeah. They're like how did they build the pyramids? They had Yes do it.
Well, the thing about Yes also was that when they came out, it was their second record, Fragile, and this was 71. And we were all brand new at this stuff, you know, 72, something like that. And so to hear that type of a bass was so new to us that I think most bass players kind of went that direction. Tom Peterson, everybody, you know, we all went out and got guitar amps, you know, and put them together because that's what Chris Squire did. The thing I loved about Chris Squire also was he could play soulful. He could put a groove down. Because Roundabout, think about that song Roundabout, where one part he's just going, that's I Can Tina Turner, you know? Then all of a sudden he's going, and all of a sudden he's on the prog land with keyboards and Emerson Saker Palmer and shit, you know? And I'm going, this guy put the two together and made it work. And that's what really opened my mind up to the how far you could go with bass. Is you don't have to be Jamie Jamerson. You could be John Entwistle and Jamie Jamerson and make it work. You know, that's where and then I heard John Entwistle too. His tone was what got me. John Entwistle played too much for me. He was just too busy. I couldn't find the groove there. But boy, oh boy, that tone, man, it was like, and how he used to trail, you know, everybody'd go, bum, bum, bum. And he'd go, bum, 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 bum. He always hit that open note before the rest of the band would hit it just to hear that tone. And I'm going, yeah. And you listen to King's X or anything I do, I always kind of hit that note ahead of the beat, or I'll lag it off for a millisecond after the band ends, just so you can hear that tone, just like he did, you know. Everything we do is because we heard somebody else do it.
Sure. Yeah, of course. A combination of influences. I wanted to ask you, you kind of answered it a little bit, but I wanted to ask, what was the initial reason that you were drawn to bass specifically over guitar? Because obviously, you know, a lot of people start on guitar, they eventually go over to bass. So I'm wondering what it was about bass, maybe something specific that you heard or an artist.
Growing up in the 50s and 60s, guitar was way in the background. You didn't even notice it. It was all about the bass. I mean, especially the 60s. If you think about Motown songs and Memphis songs, the bass always started out. You knew what the song was. It was always the bass. So I was like 7, 8, 6. I'm not sure. I had to look it up one day. But Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers had a song called "Why Do Fools Fall in Love." I don't think I was in school yet. And I was at my cousin's house and they're teenagers and they used to play all the rock and roll music, Little Richard and all that stuff. And they brought these 2 records home, The Platters, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, and The Platters, The Great Pretender, and Why Do Fools Fall in Love. There's 78 records. And I heard this song, and I go, wow. And I remember sitting there, and that's all I listened to on that song. And I remembered the song. I could sing it to you right now, but that bass part, I memorized it, and I would go home and think about it. And from that point on, it was like everything I listened to, I honed in on the bass, low end. Even when I played baritone sax, it was do 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 do. And even when I started banging on a grand piano, it was bong gong gong gong, and I would just love that tone. And so I finally I kind of put it all in my bass.
That's amazing. Yeah. I got to tell you, the most excited I've been by any human being was when I got an email randomly from Carol Kay a few months ago. And she was the one that played bass on a bunch of those songs.
Yeah.
Do you remember her? And I called my mom. I'm like, Carol Kay. And she's like, who? And I'm like, are you joking? I'm like,
Nobody knew.
Batman theme, My Girl. Like, do you know a band called The Temptations? Like, do you know everything from the 60s and the 70s ever? Like, The Wrecking Crew? So, like, I got to tell you.
Have you ever watched the video? Oh, there's a documentary on her, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I've watched that, absolutely.
I had no idea either. I mean,
they
I
played
was
like 100
schooled.
million songs. Like, those people nailed those tunes that we've been listening to for years in like an hour.
She got no credit for it either, really. I mean, we hear about it, but she should.
How about Gimme Shelter? How about that girl in Gimme Shelter? Where like,
she should be in a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, she goes in and like they paid her like $10 or something like that, and then the next day she hears herself on the radio with the Rolling Stones, and it's like she's the voice that everyone knows forever.
Yeah.
True story. Music.
Moral of the story: it's cool to play bass with a pick. I don't care what anyone says.
Awesome.
And listen to Doug. Don't ever ask for money. Don't ask for money, and you won't be let down.
That's true.
So Doug, we got about 10 minutes left, a little more, maybe 15 minutes left. I want to really know about what you're working on. Like, what do you want people to hear right now? I mean, the solo record is phenomenal. Like what's up with Grinder Blues, which I've heard a little bit about. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. 2 brothers, Scott and Jabo. They the drummer and a guitar player, and they played with Sun Seal. And I call them white boys that played with a bunch of black blues players because they played they've got to open for or behind B.B. King, Ray Charles. They've done some stuff with them and been on tour with them and stuff. So it's like they know their music. And I grew up in the 50s where Chicago blues started, and I remember the authentic records were played in the front porch, the 45s and 78s when I was a little kid. And I just remember all the conversations and hearing that stuff. And I thought, these guys, they know blues, the traditional blues, the real stuff. And I thought, well, I remember that stuff too. Let's do a throwback to the old Chicago blues, but take it by way of ZZ Top's Tres Hombres album. Let's make it, let's
the
do
Reverend.
Yes, let's do what ZZ Top did. Now, I was 22 when ZZ Top came out with Tres Hombres. And for me, that was like taking all that shit I listened to growing up and putting it in my generation's hands and putting it on 12. Because the songs were traditional, but they had a little twist to them. They had a little cleverness to them. They had a little bit more upbeat, and they were darker and heavier. And I thought, this is badass. I said, so let's take that approach 100 years later. So we decided to take our guitars and drop them down to B and do the ZZ Top thing, but put our little twist to it. And it turned out to be fun because it's really traditional, but it's a little twisted. And what I love about it more than anything is there's only one way you can sing blues. So I'm not experimenting like I do with all my other stuff. Because, I grew up singing in the choir in school. I like singing like a white boy and doing Queen harmonies. I like show tunes music. I like Celine Dion. So, all those different types of genres, I kind of somehow try to morph into the vibe of whatever the song that I'm writing is. But with Grinder Blues, you just gonna sing blues. You ain't gonna sing nothing else. And so it's kind of a comfort. Just lay it out like I'm in church and singing the blues. So that's a lot of fun. It's a real natural sounding record. The other thing about it real quick is we went to Cleveland, Mississippi, where we made the record. There's a blues college in Cleveland, Mississippi, where the producer was teaching a class. He said, come down and we'll do this record for free. And he said, we'll do it in front of a class. And he says, okay. So we went down and we wrote all the songs on the spur of the moment, did the whole record. And when I got there, I come to find out that the Dockery, which is a plantation, which was down the road, which is where all the blues players went and picked cotton before the cotton gin came and they lost their jobs. And then they all moved to Chicago and Memphis. Okay, so I went there. We did the whole trip, learned everything. Then the Crossroads, where the graveyard is. We went to the Crossroads where, the whole thing started, Johnson, what's his name?
Robert Johnson.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Then make it even deeper than that for me. Down the street, 10 miles is a town called Batesville. This is Laurel County, Mississippi. This is where my dad's family comes from. So my whole family came from that area in that town. They were slaves at the Bates Ranch, and this town is called Batesville. Down the road 10 miles, my grandmother, who's Choctaw Indian, was born. And I'm standing there going, I'm getting ready to make a fucking blues record and all this history right here. And it was just, I just soaked it all in. It was amazing. I didn't talk to any relatives about it because I don't know my dad's family, a whole lot of them. I know my sisters, but I kind of mentioned to them later. So I didn't run out and meet anybody, but when I go into the town and I saw Black people, I go, man, these people might be my relative. Because I didn't even meet my dad till I was 14, so I don't know his family that well. But wow. It was just a crazy thing. First song on the record is a true story.
Wow, what an amazing experience! Wow, that's amazing.
It really was.
Yeah.
So that's Grinder Blues, and then my solo record. Yeah, I just did it at home and had fun.
makes it sound so
King's
easy.
New King's X is done, and we're getting ready to. We got a lot of things going with that. I don't know what to say yet because there's so much we're going to do to put this record out that it's going to take us a while. So our fans are kind of pissed because we're taking forever, but they're going to be happy because I've just been getting some emails with some things, some campaigns and some things we're going to be doing that I'm like going, yeah, this is like what we've always wanted to do, video things and live things and just, documentary kind of things and all kinds of cool things. And it's all going to come out at once, but it's going to take a while. So
we gotta hold our
That's awesome. A lot to look
King's
forward
X.
to.
Yeah. But at least you have so many projects going on and so many things coming out that people can check out. And
also KXM, because you mentioned a PGP, Pridgeon and Gales. KXM is George Lynch and Ray Luzier from Korn, and we have 3 records out. We're going to be working on the 4th one probably in a few months. We're going to get that going as soon as Ray can take a break from Korn and get that going. So got a lot of things coming.
It's amazing. Wow, you're such an inspiration, just like listening to you and all the projects that you're doing, and you're just kicking it in every way possible.
I wrote down a note that I swear I just want to know this. Like, I listened to Game Changer. That's the song. I wrote it down. Game Changer. Key Changer. All right. So, okay, I wasn't listening to the lyrics. I'm more of a riff guy.
It's okay.
But
I
wrote down, it sounds to me like an Ohio Players groove. Am I hearing that?
Yeah,
Am I right?
You probably are, because a lot of people keep saying Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that ain't got nothing to do with it. Flea was listening to the same bands I was listening to.
First off, they're saying that because Roller Coaster of Love or Love Roller Coaster, they covered that for Beavis and Butthead, but that's the Ohio Players.
Okay, I pulled up Love Roller Coaster, and I still don't hear it. But for me personally, it reminds me of a 70s funk band. You could say Ohio Players, you could say Commodores, you could go down the list.
Look at how you're dancing.
Yeah, it's just how we did it. It's just how we did it. It's how we did it back then, I mean, it's just a typical funk groove that, you know, and I thought, wow, you can dance to this. I pull out my 8-string guitars and decided to put a little gent touch on it. And I played my 8-string guitar and played the E string, you know, and tuned it to E. So you got 3, you know, unison E's. I was just dealing, I've been trying to write a couple songs with my gent guitars because I just love Meshuggah and that stuff. But, you know, I can't do that kind of math stuff. But
you said that so fast. It sounded like it said, I love my sugar. But you like, let's be clear, you like Meshuggah as in the band,
as
very
gent,
different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you could have said, like, I need my sugar back in my pancakes.
Well, see, they're a big inspiration to me because, you know, Yes used to be a big inspiration, and prog metal, you know, and all kinds of stuff because I like parts and changes. But Meshuggah came along and made me groove so mathematically fucked up that it gives me goosebumps.
It's so true.
And I love to go see them play because I dance my ass off. Give me the one, and the grooves they're so fucked up. And here's the thing, as a child, I always loved funky music. I love that offbeat thing. And I would make up these crazy fucked up rhythms in my head, but I had no metronome in my head. So I just walk along and the whole thing's out. But I didn't know what I was doing. And when I heard Meshuggah 40 years later doing this, I thought to myself, they taught me the math behind it. And so I go, whoa, okay, now I can do this myself in my own head. And it's so much fun to come up with some really screwed up grooves now that you can still dance to. I used to make up fucked up rhythms before where you couldn't dance to them. They were just math for math, like a lot of gent bands are. But Meshuggah, like the godfathers of the thing, everything they do grooves. And so if you're grooving, I don't care who you are, I'm down with you.
That's beautiful. And that's
what an excellent way to wrap up the
seriously, man.
If you ain't got groove, you got nothing.
Yeah.
That's right. May the groove be with you.
May the groove be with you, Doug.
And also with you.
Right.
I always say that. I've said that for years and years, for like 30 years. May the groove be with you. I just tell people that all the time.
Well, we're going to pass that on to everyone we talk to as well. And pay it forward.
Doug, I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us because I'm not even kidding. I'm dead serious. And I tell people, go online and support bands because one thing we talked about earlier is, you know what? This is how Doug eats. This is how everybody in the music industry tries to eat if you're lucky. And Shannon Larkin from Godsmack, who's a good friend of ours, literally called me and was like, oh, do you want to talk to Doug? I'm like, do I ever? So, and here you are. So thank you, Shannon Larkin, for manifesting one of my fucking heroes and one of the greatest voices, dare I say, in history. We had Miles Kennedy on this last week, and we're having you on this week. Like, shit, man. Like, unless Freddie Mercury comes back to the Ouija board, I don't know who else we're going to talk to. Like, what the fuck?
No, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. You're an amazing person, human, spirit, musician, all the things. And
thank you.
We've learned a lot from you. And I'm sure that everyone tuning in will absolutely learn a lot from what you had to say in both parts. So for anyone listening to this, go back and listen to part 1 as well.
And subscribe.
Yep, 2020-d.com. We'll put all the links, Doug, that you got
to promote
going
everything.
If there's anything else you want to let people know about, let them know. Otherwise, man, yeah.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
That's right, but I guess so. Yeah.
I was trying to say Happy Halloween, but
it's all right. All the holidays coming up.
Yeah, it's just happy everything, right?
Yeah.
and thank you for being living proof that music keeps you young, because
absolutely,
you're on top of it, and it's just it's so inspiring to hear you talk. So
dude, my back hurts at 38. That's when you got signed. I literally can barely walk. I have like thoracic outlet syndrome. My arms are numb, and like meanwhile you're 70 being like, I feel fine.
I do.
Like that hurt to do that.
Do some research. You gotta fix that, man. You got to.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, listen,
Yeah.
man. Can I'm telling you, as you can see, I surround myself with this. I will pay you whatever for you to sign your new record for me. Charge me whatever, but please send me something I can frame in my studio and put up with all my energy around me, because I want some of Dug Pinnick. That's why I got these online, because I all my favorite people are watching me. So when I'm by myself trying to get the bass, I play 300 times until I hate myself because you're watching me.
All right. That's Ben's
Bless
ask
you.
that he makes on every episode.
Yeah.
So,
No,
so
yeah,
we
because
can-
I worship the people. It's amazing.
I understand him. I understand.
I heart
do.
him.
I love this guy.
we appreciate your time, man. Check out 2020-d.com. And Doug, hopefully we can talk to you again soon, man.
I hope so too. Take care.
All right.
care.
Thank you so
and
much.
King's X, please come back.
Another great thing about being in the Bay Area, for all my complaints about it, the guitar teacher that a bunch of us studied with, the guys in Exodus, the guys in a band called Possessed. The guitarist was Larry Lalonde. He would later join a band called Primus. The guy that we all studied with was named Joe Satriani, and he was teaching in a little guitar shop, and we were all kind of scratching our heads going, why is this guy not more well known? This is insane.